What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to do what I think is going to be our last waiver wire video of the season. It is week 17. I pray that none of you guys have playoffs extending into week 18. We're going to talk about my top 5 running backs to pick up off of waivers. Then we're also going to get into just some random guys that I kind of want to throw in, a quarterback, some wide receivers. It's week 17, so you're not really going to, the Amon-Ra St. Browns of the world and the Gabriel Davises of the world aren't on your waiver wire at this point, and you're probably not going to find a 1-week league winner besides just desperation type throws. But there are some really, really nice running back options on waivers. This has kind of been, we were talking about in the offseason, zero RB was plenty viable this year. Highest points per game player, wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Last week, the highest scoring running backs in the semifinal round. If you wanted to go up against a Jonathan Taylor team, if you wanted to compete with an Austin Eckler team, Eckler was gone. Taylor had a down week. If you had Justin Jackson, Rex Burkhead, Rashaad Penny, all of those guys, you probably won your lineup. You didn't need to have monster running backs, but that's my zero RB rant for right now. We'll get into zero RB, all the strategy stuff in the offseason. I think next week I might do some, some perspective videos in terms of just kind of what did we gain from this season. I don't know if I want to do it literally week 18 or give us some time to breathe, but at the same time I feel like the season won't be as relevant if I did it later on in January. So we'll kind of see where we're at. Let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see as soon as this week, as soon as next week, in terms of just things outside of rankings videos, waiver wires, top 10 lessons learned, if that makes sense, because we're now kind of shifting into this new spot where it's a little bit early for prospect talk. It's a little bit late for in-season talk. It's also the playoffs, so nobody really cares about what's going on in terms of fantasy. But we're 2 minutes in. We haven't even touched up on waivers yet, so let's get straight into this. If you're new here, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
All right, so our first running back here, potential league winner, Rashaad Penny. And if you guys remember, there's a video. If you look at it, I want to say it's my must draft running back video, or my must draft targets video. It might be back in August. It was my first real seasonal video that we did this year, probably before we even had 1,000 subscribers. Rashaad Penny was in there. He's on some of my best ball teams. I will say I would have ended up with way more Rashaad Penny if he was just healthy. He ended up getting hurt at the end of the offseason, so if you took Rashaad Penny, he probably didn't help you out a ton, if you just rostered him the entire time. But a lot of these best ball teams that picked up Rashaad Penny, I have a bunch of Rashaad Penny in best ball. They are really coming alive down the stretch here, which is amazing. Best ball, really dope format, because my seasonal teams with T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, those kinds of guys, I'm going to be honest with you guys, they're dead, right? T. Higgins, A.J. Brown have had amazing stretches here, but you got to get real lucky to advance those teams. But in best ball, they're still alive. They're still out there throwing. So any of my Burrow to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase stacks, all doing really, really well. Best ball, been super profitable this year. We're going to hit it hard on Underdog again next year. But back, I don't know, I'm all over the place today, but it's also the last week of the season, fellas. So you're going to get me, improvise and going off the top, just kind of giving my thoughts on things. But Rashaad Penny, 44.1% owned in ESPN leagues. He currently leads the league in rushing yards over the last 3 weeks, which is insane. The guy has 311 yards over his last 3 weeks, and that was with a dud week in week 15. That was because the game script, they were behind the entire time. I want to say DJ Dallas played a pass-catching role. But this week, Rashaad Penny looked great again. 17 carries, 135 yards, and a touchdown. He is playing extremely efficient. 7.9 yards per carry this week. Now, again, I always say this I always preface this when I say yards per carry. Yards per carry is a terrible stat. It sucks. But in small sample sizes, it's just something to look at. It's not super predictive year to year, but 7.9 yards per carry tells me that Rashaad Penny's got juice, right? He's breaking off long runs. He's doing his thing. He's not, getting a million touches and, just kind of grinding out yards. He looks explosive. He looks good. He had 19.5 points. He's had 10 or more rush attempts in his last 4 consecutive games. And he has a home run matchup this week. If you are in need of a running back, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the major running back injuries, but I can't really think of one right now. I guess Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But if you're in need of a running back, every last dollar of your fab needs to be spent on Rashaad Penny because he is playing the Lions this week. The Seahawks should kill the Lions. They're playing the Lions. The Lions are the worst rush defense in the league per DVOA. Really good matchup. Rashaad Penny is available in over half of leagues right now. He is easily the number one waiver wire pickup this week. And moving on from Rashaad Penny, we're going to talk about Wisconsin alumni Dare Ogunbowale. He's always been someone fun that I've had on like the benches of my dynasty teams and has always been interesting. He was in a pass catching role with the Bucks for a while, and he was kind of the guy that last year I thought was going to be in like a James White kind of role. I was kind of interested in Dare Ogunbowale, but he's in a really interesting spot here because he really does profile as a guy that's kind of just a pass catcher. But it's an interesting situation here because you have James Robinson go down because he tore his Achilles. You also have no Carlos Hyde the rest of the season, and they're a bad Jaguars team. I doubt that they, scramble to sign a veteran. They probably just roll Dare Ogunbowale out there, whoever else they have on the bench, and they just kind of let things roll the rest of the season. I will say, I don't want to jinx anything. I would love to see Laviska Shenault play some running back. I don't know if it's going to happen because, they don't have the most forward-thinking offensive minds in that, team, coach room, whatever. But if you give me like put Laviska Shenault in a Deebo Samuel role, like with the 49ers, Elijah Mitchell goes out, they bring in Deebo, let him run the ball. Would love to see it from Dare Ogunbowale. I'm kind of just wishfully thinking here, but he looked good last week. James Robinson goes down in the first couple plays of the game. I had James Robinson in a lot of really big spots, hurt your boy bad, but Dare Ogunbowale had 17 carries, 57 yards, a touchdown, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 15 yards, 15.2 points on the day. Nothing amazing, but Dare Ogunbowale with nobody in front of him is pretty much a back end, fringe RB2 at this point. And his only problem is he has a tough matchup this week against New England, but he does kind of have the perfect pass catching skill set where they're going to be in a negative game script. They're going to be dumping it down a lot. So he could kind of be that PPR machine this week. Then we have Boston Scott / Jordan Howard. And again, I've been preaching this ever since Miles Sanders went down and the Eagles really cranked things up on their rush attempts. Literally, Miles Sanders goes down and they crank things all the way up on the rush attempts. They're now the league leader in rush attempts, despite early on in the season, there was a game where they had maybe like 7 rush attempts for Miles Sanders against the Cowboys on like a primetime game. Now they're running the ball a lot. Miles Sanders just got hit with an injury. I don't know why I didn't put the player thing up, but Miles Sanders got hit with an injury, so he's done. And Jordan Howard is in a weird spot where he got what's called like a stinger. I don't know what that means. I think it's like maybe his shoulder got hurt. Usually, right, if we see Adam Hutchinson right here, he says the typical timeline for a stinger is about 1 week, so he could play. The thing is with Jordan Howard is that in 2019, he had some complications with a stinger and missed 6 weeks. So there's a possibility that it's like the same type of injury. He misses a lot more time than we expect. So I lean picking up Boston Scott over Jordan Howard, but Jordan Howard could also just have like whatever a normal stinger is and be fine for this week. Boston Scott this week had 12 carries, 12 carries, 41 yards, and a touchdown. Howard had 9 for 37 on the ground. I prefer Boston Scott. I think Scott will be the lead back here. Jordan Howard, if he does play, it'll be hurt. If he doesn't, I don't. Dude, I could go on another rant about Kenneth Gainwell. It makes no sense that the Eagles now have Kenneth Gainwell as like their 4th string running back on the depth chart. I think it just kind of speaks to his draft capital, being a 5th round draft pick, he gets no respect, but it makes no sense to me just because he was a really good prospect. He showed a lot of flashes early on in the season where he was pretty much the number 2 back. It was Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. Miles Sanders goes down and then somehow Kenneth Gainwell gets relegated to RB4. Makes no sense to me, but this is a team that leads the league in rush attempts per game. They're playing Washington, who allows the 13th most fantasy points per game. I think Boston Scott and then whoever else starts behind them, they'll both be usable. Boston Scott will probably be like a fringe RB2. The other guy will probably be like a fringe RB3. Moving on, we have Rex Burkhead as our 4th running back on this list, and I wish I started Rex Burkhead in places, man. It just didn't feel good. But I mean, the Chargers allow the most fantasy points to opposing running backs, and Rex Burkhead busted it wide open. 22 carries, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, 28.9 points. League winner Rex Burkhead. The guy won you weeks. If you had the balls to start Rex Burkhead in a big spot, he won you that week. Now, my only concern with him moving forward, right, this next game, is he had 62% of the snaps this week, 28.9 points, and all those touches. Last week, the week before, he had 64% of the snaps, only 5.7 points. So it's tough because, if he stays the same, it might have just been an off game against the Chargers and a really wonky just game environment and game script. But now we keep on preaching this season, is that talent breeds opportunity. So that 62% of the snaps that he saw this week isn't stagnant, right? It could go up next week. It could go up to 70%, and they could feed him the ball a little bit more. He does have a tough matchup against San Francisco. The reason why he's not at the top of this list is because of that, right? It's a tough matchup. He's also very volatile. He's not in line for as many touches as Ogunbowale and Penny at the top. But again, he's a nice upside swing if you are a 0 RB team and you just need something desperately off waivers. Now, our last running back on this list is going to be Justin Jackson, who was insane. Shout out Jacob Sanderson on Twitter, dude. The guy is an absolute beast. He has I want to say, no, not even a 0 RB team. It's a Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley team advanced to the finals. I didn't get any best ball tournament teams to make it to the finals, which is tough. Like, Justin Herzig is the best ball player I know of. He probably runs up like hundreds of teams. He has 4 teams alive right now across all of his teams. So making it to that finals game is insane. But when you make it there, $25 entry on Underdog, if you make it to the finals, right? I want to say there's only like 160 teams, and if you, like, let's say you place literally last, you're still in place for like thousands of dollars. So really wild that he made it there. He had Justin Jackson and Rashaad Penny as his last 2 picks. Wild team. Justin Jackson, another guy, if you took him in best ball, he was amazing. I will say Justin Jackson was a much harder read than Rashaad Penny, because the problem with Justin Jackson is they brought in Brandon Staley, they brought in a new OC, and the questionable part was it going to be Roundtree, was it going to be Josh Kelly, or Justin Jackson? I ended up kind of getting a mix of the 3. If you went heavier on Justin Jackson, you're going to make a lot of money this year. And with Justin Jackson, he played 73% of the snaps, 70% of the routes, 11 of 16 running back carries, and 9 targets. He was involved. It was a perfect game script for him. They were losing to the Texans. He got involved with 9 targets. He put up 33.2 points, 11 carries, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns, 9 targets, 8 catches for 98 yards through the air. So he kind of benefited from Mike Williams not playing. Got a lot of passing down work. Was really efficient between the tackles. Just a really crazy game from Justin Jackson. And the only reason that he's this far down is that Eckler most likely comes back to the starting lineup this week. So Justin Jackson, I put him on here just to put him on here in case Eckler doesn't play. I think he will. He out-carried Austin Eckler the week before that, but I got to imagine a week off, Eckler probably gets healthy. So Justin Jackson, to me, is probably a fringy RB3 this week at best if Eckler plays, but still an interesting ad. Now, I kind of wanted to go into I wrote some notes on some other guys. I know that this video is going to be titled like top 5 running back targets and waivers, but we have Isaiah McKenzie, who, if Cole Beasley misses another week, which he might because of the COVID thing and him not having a vaccine or whatever, if he does, Isaiah McKenzie is playing in that role. He put up 29.4 points this week as Cole Beasley's replacement, so he's very interesting. I'll say another guy that I like at wide receiver, Josh Palmer. He now has 15-plus points in both of his games with over 80% of the snaps. He's a really nice, low-end wide receiver 3 if Mike Williams misses time again. I will say I do believe Mike Williams will be back this week, but if he doesn't, Josh Palmer's a great spot. Next, we have Rashad Bateman, who played his most snaps of the entire season the last 2 weeks. So he's trending upwards. Lamar might come back. Rookie wide receivers have that really high upside that we talk about, so he could be. It wouldn't shock me at all if Rashad Bateman had like a league-winning week, one of those insane performances. Then our last wide receiver is, I'm going to say, either Green Bay wide receiver. Lazard looked really good against the Browns, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling looked good in a couple games before that. So I would say either of them. I probably still lean Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but they're both, we're talking if you're down bad in the flex, I think that they're both decent flyer options at flex that, can kind of just have boom weeks. Then we have our only tight end, Gerald Everett, who has really snuck under the radar. I didn't even know this, but he has had 10 or more points in 5 of his last 7 games. Now he plays against the Lions. He should be in play for 10 or more again. Then we have, at quarterback, Trey Lance. It has finally happened. For all the guys out there that want to call him the next Pat Mahomes, the arc, essentially, Mahomes' first career game was week 17. I think Trey Lance's first career game is about to be week 17. Right? Did Trey Lance play any regular season football yet? I can't remember if he came in. I want to say Jimmy Garoppolo was dealing with some kind of injury. I don't know. But Jimmy Garoppolo hurt now. Trey Lance is coming in. You got to have some titanium balls to start Trey Lance in your championship week. But if you do, he has monster upside. He has, in terms of wheels, he is in the conversation with, guys like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, in terms of, just Jalen Hurts too, as guys that can run the ball and really give you fantasy points in that way. Now, that's going to do it for us today, fellas. As always, make sure you go down below, subscribe if you're new, leave a like. I'm going to have a waiver wire article out today on this if you want to check that out. That's going to be down below, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. As always, I love you guys. I'm going to start dialing up the running back rankings here. That'll be out tomorrow. As always, love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner.